A short-term funding bill was unveiled late last night as the deadline to fund the federal government fast approaches. Preventing a shutdown is just one of a laundry list of items that lawmakers are scrambling to tackle before leaving town for the midterm election season. Our congressional correspondent Lisa Desjardins is here with the latest. Hello, Lisa. So Lisa, as we know, we're now just 3 days from the deadline for getting this funding thing figured out. Where does Congress stand?
Well, a funny thing happened just in the past couple of hours. This complicated knot of short-term funding seems to be untwisting itself in the Senate. As you reported earlier, Senator Joe Manchin, who was a key figure in this funding fight, stepped back and sort of removed his requirement for this short-term funding bill, which was, as we talked about last week, permitting reform, especially dealing with energy permitting. He said he realized, he didn't say it this way, but essentially, Judy, he didn't have the votes. He realized he did not have the votes to get past a procedural hurdle tonight. He did not have 60 votes. And rather than hold up the short-term funding bill with his demand, he took that demand off. Now, if we look at the Senate floor right now, as we speak, look at this. This is actually the quiet sign of progress. Look at that. No drama. But as you know, in the modern Senate, when it's quiet, usually that's a good sign. This is the Senate right now voting on the procedural vote to move to this funding bill. And let's talk a little bit about what exactly would be in this funding bill, because these must-pass vehicles are important policy instruments sometimes as well. Funds government through December 16th. Now, in addition to that, there's $12 billion in Ukraine aid. Some of that would go to the government of Ukraine. Some of it is military aid, all sorts of funding for Ukraine. Also, there's $3 billion in here that would be transferred to help with resettlement of Afghans who made it to this country. And then there's $20 million also for Mississippi water infrastructure. So, and also some housing money in this as well. So this is going to be a significant bill, not just for continuing funding of government, but for some specific problems.
But there are also the critics out there. What are they saying about this bill?
It's simple. Democrats and the Biden administration are very disappointed because the president's request for tens of billions of dollars to help with monkeypox and also the coronavirus is not in this bill. One of the reasons it's not is the president himself saying on 60 Minutes just over a week ago that, in his words, the pandemic is over. The White House went out to explain, well, that just means that we still have work to do. But Republicans are using that statement to say, we don't want to fund that.
So that is happening. And we know it's a busy week in general. Tell us now about the January 6th committee announcing today they're postponing or canceling tomorrow's hearing, which had been scheduled right up until now, and also where we stand on electoral reform.
One of those interesting days today on Capitol Hill, little bits of news that were important. The January 6th postponement, let's read what the committee said in its statement about what they were doing. I know you reported this earlier, but they wrote that in light of Hurricane Ian bearing down on parts of Florida, we have decided to postpone tomorrow's proceedings. We're praying for the safety of all those in the storm's path. Now, one of the representatives on the January 6th Select Committee, of course, Stephanie Murphy, is a Florida representative. Her district is in the path, potentially, of the hurricane. It's more internal. It's not on the Gulf Coast. It shouldn't be a Category 3 hurricane when it reaches there, but that was one factor. Another, Judy, though, my sources telling me, multiple sources telling me, the committee did not want to compete with potential cable news coverage of a hurricane bearing down. They wanted people to watch their meeting, their hearing, and they didn't think that tomorrow would be a good opportunity. They were concerned about safety, but they were also concerned about viewership, and that's one reason this will be postponed indefinitely. Not a lot of time before the midterms. We don't know if we will see this before the election.
And on electoral reform, what are you hearing about that?
A breakthrough on that as well today. In the Senate, the Senate Rules Committee passed its version of a bill that would reform that Electoral Count Act, trying to prevent a January 6th style run at overturning the election results. That passed 14-1. Only Senator Ted Cruz was a no. He said it's too federalizing of elections. But other than that, overwhelming support for it, including Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell, who came out today saying he supports that reform. I think we should watch for that to come together again after the midterm elections. One other note, we're watching for the Stock Act. That is a bill that would prevent members of Congress from trading stocks while in office. That could get a vote in the House this week, but the votes are very close on that. It's not clear it has the votes to pass.
A lot going on. You can tell we're getting close to Congress having to finish up.
Nothing like the clock to motivate Congress.
Nothing like the clock. Lisa Desjardins, thank you.
You're welcome.